morning, everyone. Is this thing loud enough? Is this good? Hey, there we go. Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. Hello, everyone. Can we bring it under control here just for a second so we can start the meeting? All right, we're going to bring it up here. Is this okay to hold it like this? Hello, good morning. My name is Mike McMullen. I'm president of the Carroll County Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to 2024. How about a round of applause for the new year? We all made it through 2023. All right, first thing, very important, turn your phone ringers off. Get rid of them. Vibrate is no better. In fact, it's very annoying when it goes rolling across the table, and then we have to grab phones and smash them. So let's just keep things nice and quiet. And how about the fact that 2024 marks 100 years for the Chamber. This is our 100-year anniversary. And somebody actually commented they thought I was here in the beginning. I was not. I'm not that old yet. So what can I tell you? I want to take a couple seconds and thank some of the folks here that are helping to make this a great event. I want to thank the Community Media Center as they're actually going to be streaming this. This thing's being streamed live. Thank you. We're being streamed live right now. These guys are great. They work with us on a lot of events. Also want to thank BGE, a longtime sponsor. We're going to hear from both of them. It's been over 13 years. And I want to thank Carroll Hospital for this beautiful place and the nice food. How about a round of applause for that? These guys, nice job. And also many thanks to our delegation for being here. So we have about 700 members right now. And we've got a great legislative committee who looks at the bills that are introduced in Annapolis, about 2,500 or more. Isn't that right? Is that about? I think that's just insane. That's so many bills. I mean, how do you actually look at those things and understand what's in them so you can vote for them? But we have people on our committee who are really good at looking at the bills that impact business. So if you're on the Chamber's Legislative Committee, if you could please stand right now. We have a few of you here. We've got a few. If anybody has a passion for this and would like to get involved in this group, we meet on Monday, starting the Monday after Martin Luther King Day. 22nd. Okay, March. January 22nd, and we'll meet from 11:30 until 1 o'clock at Johansson's in Westminster. So if you'd like to get involved in that committee, we could use your help. So, the Maryland General Assembly is going to be meeting from January 10th, isn't it, folks? Is that when it starts? January 10th through April 8th. So just these guys have got such a lot to do when you consider that a lot of the people that represent us have a certain way of looking at life and at business than others in the state of Maryland. It's a tough job for them. I think a round of applause for our delegation, for all the good work that we do. So I'd like to recognize some of our elected officials who are here with us today. So when I call your name, if you could please stand and be recognized. First on my list, and I don't know if I saw him come in yet, would be Senator Justin Reedy. Is Justin here yet? Now, hopefully he'll be here. Senator Chris West. Chris? Delegate Chris Tomlinson. Okay, he's here. Delegate Joshua Stanko. Delegate April Rose. Delegate Eric Boucher. Eric's here. Very good. Patricia Dorsey, Sahitha Sudhakar. I think I got it right? Awesome. I was worried about that one. Steve Whistler. And Cindy McCabe, who's the Carroll County Public School Superintendent and a member of the Chamber's Board. Did I miss anybody from the school board? Okay, good. I'd like to also welcome Westminster City Councilwoman Ann Gilbert and Tawnytown City Councilwoman Diane Foster. She was signed up. I don't know that I saw her, but I'd like to recognize and congratulate the Associate President of Carroll Community College, Dr. Rose Mintz. Rose? Stand up, let people see you. She's going to become president of the college upon Jim Ball's retirement at the end of the current school year on July 5th. Congratulations. And past chairs of the board of the chamber, Dennis Twigg from Hoffman Comfort, Offutt, Scott, and Halstead. I get to do that one again. Dennis, where are you? That was always fun. Dave Bollinger from Barnes Bollinger Insurance. Steve Wantz from Carroll Community College. Steve, I saw you here. When were you president? It was before I was here. Well, stand up and be recognized. Brenna Fisher from Shippers, thank you. So did I miss any other past chairs of the board?
One more elected.
Oh, I'm sorry. Stand up. I'm losing it. Chris Tillman, that's right. Tawnytown City Councilman. Sorry. Don't throw those curveballs at me, okay? Thank you. And also, we need to recognize, we get the best folks who come to this event, right? We even get royalty that comes here. So every so often, when somebody comes in with a crown, they have to be recognized. I may wear one time, but that's not probably going to happen. Brooke Nixon, Miss Carroll County. So that I don't get in trouble, did I miss anybody else who needed to be any elected officials, any past? Who is it? Simple country lawyer, state's attorney. Haven, you were on my list. I just don't know what happened. Okay, thank you. I'm glad. Anybody else that I've screwed up on? It's the first day of the new year. Okay, I don't know who scheduled this event for this day, but they should be shot. All right? Who is that? Okay, thank you. All right, now we're going to hear from our sponsors, and I've got those right, I do believe. So our first sponsor that we're going to hear from will be, let me see, our three sponsors are going to be BGE, Carroll Hospital, and CMC. So let's hear from Carroll Hospital first. They are a pillar of our community, and we're happy to have them as our venue sponsor today. And speaking on their behalf will be Brenda Frazier, Vice President of Development, Carroll Hospital Foundation. Did I get it right?
It's going to be easy following you now.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. President Garrett Hoover sends his regards. He is flying back today, I believe, from his holiday vacation, but he sends his regards and thank you for joining us here. I will say a big thank you to our food services. This is what our patients get every day, to be honest with you. We're very, very fortunate to have culinary here with us. So I wanted to thank you for that. And a year ago, I stood up here and said, "Dear Lord, we were busy." And I thought a year later I would not say the same thing, but I'm saying the same thing. The hospital is still experiencing very high volumes. The emergency department is experiencing high volumes. So grace is my word whenever our medical providers, our nurses, our technicians are doing all that they can, and they're doing a fantastic job caring for our community. But as our colleague and director of infectious disease says all the time, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. It's all about hand hygiene to help protect against the big three right now, the COVID, the flu, and the RSV. So please stay healthy. I will say one of our big successes in 2023 was we opened a high-fidelity simulation center. And I have taken many of you on tours of that already, but would love to show that off. It's a community resource. It's for our EMS teams, our community college, our McDaniel College will be able to use it as community partners, but it'll be what we use to train folks throughout the hospital, and we're really proud of that latest accomplishment. So other than that, I just want to say thank you for being here, and we will talk to Mike about changing the date maybe next year, or making it a lunch at least, if nothing else.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. You want to put it back in here?
Yeah.
All right. Can't do anything right today. I'm messing it all up. I should have also asked if you're on the board or the chamber currently standing to be recognized. These folks are great. They keep me in line. So anybody on the chamber's board? Okay, so let's hear from our next sponsor. And BGE, as I was saying, they've sponsored this event for a long time. I've been here now 13 years, and they were sponsoring it before that. So it's great to have them involved in this event once again. Do we have Marche Taylor Templeton out there anywhere? Let's bring her up. She is the External Affairs Manager for BGE. Thank you so much, Marche.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to Carroll County Chambers of Commerce, specifically Becky and Mike, for the opportunity and invitation to be a part of this great event. Again, I think this is my third year attending, so I appreciate that. It is a pleasure to be here this morning, especially knowing BGE has been a sponsor and a supporter of this event for about 15 years now. It is an honor, and we recognize how legislation impacts businesses in Carroll County and throughout Maryland. BGE will continue to partner and support the chambers and businesses, both large and small, because we recognize the need for communities that are stronger, healthier, and hopeful, and being able to access good-paying jobs is a critical piece of that. So I thank you all for letting me be here this morning, and have a great new year.
Thank you. Thank you, Marche. And our last sponsor, let's bring up Richard Turner, Executive Director of CMC. He's also on the Chamber's board, and these folks do a great job with us all year long by streaming our events, by recording our events. Mr. Turner.
All right. Good hand for Mike McMullen who keeps the chamber going. So, Mike, Happy New Year, everybody. It's great to see everybody, even if it is the first work day of the year, early in the morning. But we're really looking forward to 2024. Have you all kept your New Year's resolution so far? All right, very good. Well, I'm trying to keep mine. It's really a pleasure to be here. We appreciate the Chamber's support and its networking. I also appreciate all the sponsors that have been involved with us and our partners in terms of creating local programming. Local programming makes a difference because you can find out more about what's going on in your community. You know this year is going to be an important one with a number of elections that are going on, and so we have a firm commitment to making sure that you know who is running for office and what they stand for. So please tune in to us. Make sure that you check out on our website what's going on in terms of those events that are going on. There'll be both a combination of forums as well as individual statements from candidates. And that is the one way now these days that you can find out and make sure that you're an informed electorate. Part of our blood, really what makes our democracy work, right? Bloodstream in our democracy. So I have a pleasure of being able to head up the Community Media Center. I really appreciate our staff who comes out, the excellent work that they do being out in the community. And I encourage you to watch local. That's on channels 19. If you still have Comcast, we know people are cutting the cord, going to streaming, but you can find us online as well, YouTube, Facebook, etc. So events like today are streamed all throughout the community. So please watch local. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Richard is also actually queued up to be the Chamber's chair next year, so he'll be chair of the board. You did agree to that, right? It's on your name badge, so it's got to be true. All right, great. And have you guys all seen our new logo? We've got a really cool logo up there for our 100 year and beyond. So, before I introduce Ms. Blum here, I want to just because we've got like a minute or two. One of the most important things to get you through life when you work, because we spend more time at work than we do at home, basically. And it's great to have good people that you work with, good folks that keep the atmosphere happy and friendly, and people who get along. I mean, if you don't have that, it really, really is bad. I mean, it really sucks. Because I've worked that. I've worked that in the past where you go to work and people aren't nice, and you got to watch what you say, and it's a bad thing. I'm really blessed and happy to have a great office staff right now that make coming to work a lot of fun. And they're in the back. I've got Becky Seek and I've got Megan Steinway. Give them a round of applause. It's very efficient, very much fun, and we laugh a lot, especially once Megan starts to roll. We laugh a lot at the office. So. All right, so that being said, I want to introduce to you the moderator of today, Ms. Dana Blum. We're fortunate to have her serving as the chair of our legislative committee. She's been on this committee for well over 15 years. She's got more than 25 years experience as an HR professional, and she keeps us all in line. I mean, she makes it happen. So we're going to bring her up, and she's going to help to moderate. I guess we should probably bring up our delegation at this point. So we have a chair for each of you, and you guys will be talking from these seats here. You won't be coming up to the top here. You'll be talking from here, and you'll be trying as hard as you can to keep it at 5 minutes or less, so we can have a lot of time for Q&A. So how about a round of applause for Dana Blum? They're all yours.
Thank you.
I'm going to say this.
See if you can do a better job than me.
We'll see.
Good morning and Happy New Year. And as Mike was saying, the purpose here today is to give our delegation an opportunity to give us an idea of what's going to be new and different and hot in this year's legislative session. So to begin another legislative year, we're going to start with them. Normally we start with Senator Reedy, but he has not arrived
He
yet.
said he's running late.
Okay, that's good. Well, we will catch up with him when he gets here. So we will then start with Senator West.
Great. Well, good morning, everybody. It's nice to be here. I was here last year for the first time, so for those who were here last year, you probably know a little bit about me. Quickly, for those who weren't here last year, I'm a state senator. I just got elected last year to represent part of Carroll County, the northeastern quadrant. Basically Hampstead, part of Manchester, Finksburg, and to the northern outskirts of Westminster. Justin Reedy represents the rest of the county, and that's because the Carroll County is too big to just have one state senator. You now get 1 1/3 state senators, so I'm the third. I'm a longtime lawyer. I went to Williams College, University of Pennsylvania Law School, practiced law in Baltimore since 1975. I'm the past president of the Bar Association of Baltimore City. I spent 2 terms on the Board of Governors of the Maryland State Bar Association and never ran for politics until I was 64 years old, when my son had grown and was out of the house and my law practice was mature, and I figured I could take the time to do this. So I ran for office at 64. I got elected to the House of Delegates, 4 years later to the State Senate. So that's why I'm here. I have a number of bills. I always pass a bunch of bills. Last year I passed 9 bills. Over the past 5 years I've passed 54 bills. And that's because the only way to pass bills in Annapolis is to work across the aisle. You probably are familiar with the fact that there are very few Republicans in Annapolis and lots of Democrats. So Republicans by themselves can't pass any bills. You have to work with Democrats. You have to get bipartisan support. And I've got 30 bills on my agenda this year, which is the maximum that a state senator is permitted to have. We have limits in the Senate. In the House, they don't have any limits. 30 bills is a lot of work. Every bill is like a little mini trial. You got to have an opening statement. You have to have witnesses. You have to prepare a cross-examination. And then once the hearing is over, you have to work the bill behind the scenes to get it passed. So it's not easy. Unfortunately, none of my bills this year really sound like they're pro-business bills, because my committee is judicial proceedings. We're all divided into 4 committees. And judicial proceedings, we get all the crime bills, we get all the legal bills, the judges' bills, those sorts of bills. We get no commerce bills. Those all go to different committees in the Senate, and therefore advocates come to people on those other committees for those bills. And I'm looking at your little thing. I can't read it, what it says.
40.
Okay. So you just give me a wave when I run out of time. So I have a number of anti-crime bills. In my 9 years in Annapolis, we've passed no anti-crime bills, not one, in 9 years, even though crime in Maryland has increased astronomically in the past 9 years. In some areas, it's literally off the charts. Carjacking, for example, is off the charts all across the state. Some areas it's gone down a little bit. Thank goodness in Baltimore City they did not have as many murders this year as last year. But even so, if you have almost 300 murders, Baltimore City is not a safe place to walk around. So thank goodness we don't have 350 murders, but we still have almost 300 murders in Baltimore City. It's terrible. So we've passed no anti-crime bills, and I'm partnering with another Republican from the Lower Eastern Shore and an African-American Democrat from Prince George's County on all of these anti-crime bills. Again, the only way to get bills passed is to do it in a bipartisan way. And so my partnership with the African-American Prince George's County Democrat, his name is Ron Watson, will be very significant. I'm hopeful that I'm able to pass a couple of anti-crime bills. But let me spend the last 30 seconds I've got, or whatever it is, on something more important. I just am sending out today a blast email to everybody on my list, and it's called Chickens Coming Home to Roost. We are going to face down in Annapolis this year, in a number of areas, chickens coming home to roost. A couple of years ago, over my opposition, we passed the Kerwin, or the Blueprint program, to fundamentally change the educational system here in Maryland. The promise was that after 10 years and $32 billion of spending, we would have a system which was the equal of any system in the world, every bit as good as Sweden's or the Netherlands, or any other of the countries with stellar educational systems. We're now 4 years into Kerwin, and we're going backwards. The year before Kerwin, we had, I got the number here somewhere, we had gosh, where is it? I've missed it. We had 5-star schools. We had 189 five-star schools in Maryland. Today we have 85. We had over 500 4-star schools. Today we have 400 4-star schools. So instead of going ahead, we're going backwards. And we haven't even really begun to spend the money. It's $32 billion. It's going to be ramped up quickly. In the meantime, in counties like Carroll County, where certain goals have to be met, and if you don't meet the goals by the deadlines established in the legislation, you lose your state funding. So there's a cudgel hanging behind your heads, and the members of the school board know this full well. If you don't achieve the goal in time, you can lose your state's funding. So in Carroll County, for example, there are certain programs that have to be funded much more healthily than they are now. And in order to do that, they have to economize in other areas. And one of the few areas they're able to economize in is by increasing class size. So they're looking at the prospect of maybe having to increase class sizes in Carroll County to up to 40 students in a class in order to pay all the money into these special goals. This is a one-size-fits-all system, which I knew at the beginning was not going to work, and I voted against it. And we're going to have to tweak it this year in significant ways, or we're going to be in real trouble. Every county in the state, every school system in the state has its own problems with the one-size-fits-all regimen set up by the Kerwin system. So that's a problem. Another problem is money. Let's be honest about it. We're facing a $750 million deficit in the state right now. We have to run a balanced budget. How are we going to make up the deficit? Well, one area is by cutting way back on transportation spending. The governor's already proposed that. There are going to have to be significant other cuts. But that doesn't do the job, because while this year it's $750 million, by next year, thanks largely to the Blueprint, we're going to be nearly $1 billion. The following year, we're $1.2 billion. And then we're $2.4 billion in deficit every single year. Simply cutting back is not going to do it. We're talking now about much higher taxes.
Senator, can we move on now?
And now you should have waved at me. So I'm going to stop and we'll answer questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Delegate Thomas.
Thanks. I'm actually going to pick up exactly where he left off.
Good.
So, I won't get too much in. So my name's Chris Tomlinson. Just completed my first session last year. I serve on the House Judiciary Committee, which is the House version of the committee that Senator West serves on. So we're dealing with a lot of this, pretty much the same legislation. Obviously this year, big part of our time down there is going to be spent on juvenile and violent crime. But I'm going to talk a little bit about exactly where Senator West kind of ended, which was talking about the budget issues we're facing. And he briefly mentioned transportation issues. So one of the things that has been talked about in smaller circles, but suddenly now is getting a lot more headlines, is the Transportation Trust Fund. So the Transportation Trust Fund is the fund that primarily funds MDOT's project. So MDOT, Maryland Department of Transportation, that consists of the airports, the ports as in down in Baltimore City, MDTA, Maryland Transportation Authority, who maintain the bridges and tolls, State Highway, which obviously for us being out here in Carroll County, that's primarily the part of MDOT that we care the most about, the MTA, the public transit system, and then MVA. We do care about the MVA too, because we got to go to them for lots of things. So MDOT is primarily funded through this Transportation Trust Fund, which is primarily funded by two things: the MVA, the different services you obtain through the MVA, tag and title work, the fees associated with that. But the real big one is the gas tax. And there's obviously been a movement by leadership in Annapolis to pretty much, whether you love electric vehicles or not, there's definitely been a push to get people away from buying gas-powered vehicles. One of the things that went down last year is by 2035, no longer will you be able to buy a new gas-powered vehicle in Maryland, which we're like, who cares in Maryland, because we'll just cross 5 minutes over the line to Pennsylvania, so haha to them. But for most of the state, that's a big deal. So anyhow, this Transportation Trust Fund, because we're getting away from putting gas into our tanks, how can you fund something that's pretty much funded by the gas tax? So as a result, you've got a fund that has two issues. One, they are extremely underfunded, so you have to either find cuts or you have to find new revenue sources. And you're already starting to see this. It was announced a couple weeks ago that there's 8% cuts across all of MDOT, which even affects us here in Carroll County. You're going to see less grass getting cut, less trash removal on the side of the roads. You're going to be seeing fees possibly go up at the MVA when you're heading to Ocean City and you cross over the bridge. You're seeing commuter bus. Carroll County doesn't have commuter bus services, but most of the state has commuter bus services, which takes people from more rural suburban areas to job hubs, whether it be close to DC or Baltimore City. Totally getting cut, the entire service. Mark Train, those services are getting reduced, which I find it funny that the two public transit systems, or two public transit modes that are getting mostly affected are the ones that get people to actual jobs. So that's interesting. So you're going to see a lot of changes coming out of MDOT, and the reality is that right now MDOT doesn't know how they're going to fund about over $3 billion worth of work. So they're cutting things across the board, and they're trying to figure out how are we going to pay for all this now. So how are we going to pay for it? And there's a group called the Transportation Revenue and Transportation Needs Commission who they recently released their ideas on proposed solutions. And like I already mentioned, it includes raising fees and the costs of using different services of MVA and the tolls. But other parts that have been proposed, which was slightly terrifying when we first heard it, but a tracker. So because the folks who drive electrical vehicles are not paying the gas tax, they said, well, let's put trackers into everybody's car so we can figure out how many miles you're driving, and then we're going to charge you based on, we're going to charge you a fee based on how many miles you're driving. That was obviously not met with universal, love, and not just from Republicans, but there's a lot of distrust, especially in the African American community of, we don't want trackers in our car. So the Democrats also heard it from their folks, and I don't think that one's going to be getting by. But I know one of our colleagues represents Baltimore City. She recently proposed raising the sales tax and having that increase specifically go towards transit. So there's lots of ideas getting thrown around. You're definitely going to see some changes, and how this all relates back to the business community is, with everything in Annapolis, the solution is just raise taxes. And so that's the part that we're concerned about. And and it's also terrifying. I know Senator West was talking about blueprint, and Governor Moore is pushing forward with the red line. It's insane that we're talking about all these budget deficits, and there's no money for this, no money for that. But in the same press conference that the governor announces that there's these 8% cuts across MDOTs, but we are fully, committed to Blueprint and to the red line. And it's like, what? I mean, how can you, it's like if you were in debt, you can't pay your mortgage, and instead of selling the house like all your friends and family are telling you to do because you can't pay your mortgage, you're selling off the microwave, you're selling off the lamp on, Facebook, Marketplace. And it's like, no, you got to get rid of the house, man. Like, you're in trouble here. Forget the lamps. So anyhow, that's the state of Maryland. So thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Rose.
Well, it's great to be here this morning. Thank you for putting this together. I vote for the later start time, so if you want to put me down for that. I serve on Economic Matters now, so that was a new committee for me last year after serving on Ways and Means for 6 years. And I always say, and I'll say it again, I feel like I have Kerwin PTSD because it consumed 4 years, I think, of our lives. I served on there with Haven. And a lot of what you have said is true. In fact, one of the things, and I do like to point this out, is when they were selling this to us hard, they never did care about class size. Class size does not matter. So now that this is happening, they want to kind of walk that back. But they specifically said, I think it was in Singapore and Germany and all over the country, they want to teach kids in like big auditoriums like college students, and that really doesn't work. So I won't go too much into Blueprint because we've already touched on it. So a lot of the different subject matter that I cover in ECM are insurance issues, all of the alcohol bills. We dealt most of last year was with cannabis, energy, a lot of the energy stuff, which is very interesting. In fact, it's nice to have BG&E here. In fact, I've already spoken with your office about some upcoming legislation. I think we already have a meeting on the books, and a lot of finance issues, so banking, mortgage lending, credit use, consumer protection. So those are the subject matters. Some of the things that Chris was talking about with energy, and I have two of the more radical anti-energy people on our committee, and I sit next to one of them. So they hate, obviously, anything gas powered. They want everything to be electrified, and for some reason they really hate leaf blowers. They really talk about that a lot. They will not consider or even talk about nuclear, which is obviously a very clean form of energy. I know most of us in here are old enough to remember 3 Mile Island, but we don't really have a lot of those really big issues, and that would be a really clean way of providing energy, but they really don't want to talk about that. We talked a lot about wind, the offshore wind, which they want to put in Ocean City. And what was really interesting, and it's one thing to say, oh, windmills aren't going to be out there. These are the infrastructure to put one of these in the ocean. They have to drill down, I forget how many miles. These things weigh a ton, and I'm sure you've all seen the news. We've had so many dead whales, dolphins. It's very disruptive to the animals in the sea. They don't want to hear about that. We were told that's just a false narrative. That day, another whale had washed up on the shore. I'm like, whoa, the whale is dead. So, but they really are into this wind. It's very costly. And the company that we paired with through the state of Maryland, I think they just said, I think it was in New Jersey, it's so not cost effective that they pulled out, and they're not going to be doing it. So I don't know what Maryland is going to do. I'm sure that will be a big topic of discussion. Solar. So solar is something that we've talked a lot about here, and I know the commissioners have been dealing with, and they really are pushing that. And one thing that happens over and over again in Annapolis is they try to constantly take away our local control. And so with solar, they want to be able to put community solar wherever they want to put it, including in farmland. And that is very problematic. And when I brought that up, one of their answers was, well, we'll just put them up on stilts. Well, how are you supposed to maneuver large farming equipment, around these things? So that's something that I know that will probably be revisited this year too. The last thing I will basically say, because you guys have touched a lot of the spending and taxing, I really do appreciate the communication we have with our commissioners, with our school board, with Cindy, and very, very happy that MACO is really going to come behind all of us this year, because we will have to make changes to the blueprint. We do a really good job out here with our kids. We have a great school system, and the least they bother us, the better off we usually are. So I'll end with that, and I love the question and answer session, so I don't need to be waved at. I'm going to stop right there.
Thank you. Delegate Stonko.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody's time here this morning. We've spent a lot of time on Blueprint. I'm going to spend a little bit more time there, and more specifically the state budget. The reason why, beyond what they shared, I sit on the House Appropriations Committee, which is fully focused on the state budget. It's what we spend our entire time in the legislature doing. And it's a little different than the Senate in that the House, you break up policy, and a lot of the actual policy that was written behind Kerwin, now the blueprint, was done in Ways and Means, but the funding mechanism or the budget mechanism happens in the House Appropriations Committee, where in the Senate side, budget and taxation kind of takes both of those together. So it's just kind of a different structure based on those things. And so kind of just starting at a local level, we expect, and I shared this at the county meeting, one of the big changes this year is that COVID relief money, and it's a weird terminology to think about it in that way, but COVID relief money from the federal government has effectively subsided, and that has caused most of the challenges on the capital budget side. And so that's probably a good quick thing to explain. So in the state of Maryland, we pass 2 budgets every year. We pass the operating budget and the capital budget. So the things that Delegate Tomlinson was referencing are capital budget issues. Predominantly, there are operating budget impacts with some of those, but state highway, for example, and any type of broader building, the red line all comes from the capital budget. The operating budget would be funding things like Blueprint and the day-to-day operations of state government. And so we've kind of got two tidal waves kind of crashing into each other at the same time, right? So the Kerwin Blueprint cost that was kind of self-inflicted by the state within terms of the way it was structured and proposed, and the capital budget, which is just the end of the federal government, which as a conservative, I'm glad that the federal government is going to tamp down on some of the spending, but there's some infrastructure bills, coming behind, but that's not going to kind of take care of the X and O's of what's coming up. So locally, we had a lot of requests for local bond bills this year, and I guess what I would say is that a lot of my time is spent on that as well as the budget. And I'm going to read this as right I'm on my phone. Is that I'm going to be prioritizing public safety. So there may be people that are out there that have different bills that they brought forward or are part of organizations. I don't expect very much money being available this year. Those are things that directly impact tax dollars or public safety issues, which has really been taking the brunt of the funding impact because of the increase in Kerwin. So just kind of giving that heads up broadly, if we can take care of those issues first, then that's what I'll plan on kind of going down from there. Delegate Rose had mentioned MACO kind of moving to Blueprint, and I think it's a great place that she ended. So this is a quote that came from Calvin Ball, the Carroll County executive, as part of MACO's letter in November. The blueprint applies a one-size-fits-all approach to education investment and implementation that does not account for our state's diverse local government capacities, processes, and abilities. As we move deeper into implementation, the diverse systems, constraints, and structures counties must work within become more apparent, especially financially. And so we've been talking, and our Board of Ed was probably the first in the state to really recognize this, but we've been talking that there are other counties that are facing similar challenges or different challenges, but all comes down to funding. And a lot of what I'll be doing is trying to lift up those voices of people that I generally and most often disagree with, like Calvin Ball, on policy, and trying to make those voices as loud as possible. Their structure was to reduce the compensation part of the rollout. That's what was MACO provided on an annual basis, both in terms of non-certified and certified teachers. That would be a big cost savings, but I also expect some challenges. We have a governor that has effectively won a primary based on, and again, I'm a huge fan of our teachers, not as big of a fan of our state teachers union. Our state teachers union is a big part of his election, so we're going to have a governor that's going to have these unique challenges, that he's not going to want to raise taxes, but he's got a constituency that has been that is important in this, that has been a big advocate of his. So I'm going to be looking to try to find partners to, again, lift up those voices so that we can try to roll back this so that we do not see large whole-scale tax increases and we see some constraint in the government. And there's been, Senator Nancy King has said that she knows that, and she acknowledges that changes need to be made. And so there are some allies that I don't know that we knew we were going to have, but we were hoping we were going to have, and that's where I'll be spending my time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Boucher.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone being here this morning. You guys are the leaders of our community, so I'm very grateful that you're here showing concern for what we're going to do over the next 30 days in Annapolis. And I was just wondering, Delegate Thompson, do you have a microwave for sale and how much you want for it?
I like my use microwave.
Okay. When I came in, Mike McMillan said we're limited to 5 minutes, and I recommended we get shock collars. I think that would work well. Well, I'm also on the Judiciary Committee in the House with Tomlinson, so you have 3 individuals on this delegation that serve in some capacity with Judiciary. And I had volunteered for Judiciary. As a businessman, I realize how critical crime impacts our local economies. So having safe streets is a primary goal of us as your representatives go down to Annapolis. And we have a lot on our plate with the juvenile crime issue, the spike in the carjacking was mentioned. Things have gotten out of control. And when they get out of control in a neighboring jurisdiction, they ultimately affect us as well. So when I hear people say, oh, that's a Baltimore City issue, no, it's not a Baltimore City issue. It's a state issue and affects all of us. It affects all of our economies, so we're going to apply as much effort as we can. We've done a lot of research on Judiciary, going out visiting detention centers, rehab facilities. It's a very, very complex issue. And though I realize going to those sessions will be very contentious and stressful, I actually see it as a tremendous opportunity for us to come together in the center. Because ultimately, regardless of whether you're on the minority party or the majority party, your constituents don't like to be carjacked, they don't like to be robbed, they don't like crime. It transcends political party affiliation. We have a responsibility to address this. So I'm hoping that the majority party is willing to come more to us on the right and recognize some of our policies, our conservative issues, might present the solutions that they need. It's not just about feel-good legislation. Sometimes this body passes legislation that feels good or you think it's good, but then when it's executed, the result is not really what you want. You have some negative adverse impact upon the community. So we're going to be focused on trying to address the crime issue, and that's going to have a direct impact upon our economy and our business community. I have pre-filed 3 bills. The first bill I pre-filed is the African American Civil War Soldiers Study Commission bill. Since I'm a big history nerd, I discovered that there was 6 African American regiments that served in the Union Army during the Civil War from Maryland. And this commission will research where they served, on what battlefields, determine whether they have been recognized on those battlefields, and also with the knowledge that we obtained from this study, we ultimately want to incorporate in our educational curriculum the sacrifices made by our African American community to preserve our Union. It's been 158 years since the Civil War ended, and I find it a tremendous and grave injustice that when African Americans go to these battlefields, they do not see recognition of their heritage on the battlefield. And the amount that they contribute to winning that war is tremendous. Without the African American community and soldiers, we wouldn't have been able to crush Richmond and Petersburg and defeat the Army in Northern Virginia. So that's my historical bill. And the importance of that bill also is, as a Republican, I need to reach across the line and get the opposing party to recognize I'm not adversarial, and this is a good common ground bill to do so. The other 2 bills I have are state constitutional amendments, and they have to do with sovereignty. The citizens of Carroll County are not sovereign over their government because we do not have a local constitution. So the bill I'm offering would require all counties to adopt the Constitution and have an independent government with a county executive and a county council so that they have separation of power in the image of the United States Constitution. Carroll County is one of 12 counties in the state of Maryland that are still operating under a colonial British rule system of government, pre-Revolutionary War, pre-United States Constitution, so which for all the counties have an independent government and be less dependent upon the General Assembly. And as a legislator in the General Assembly, that frees us up with more time to actually address state issues and allow the local-only bills to come back to the local jurisdiction. A lot of people do not realize that your legislative branch of Carroll County is not the Board of County Commissioners, it's actually the Maryland General Assembly. So I'd like to fix that. The second state constitutional amendment would be a citizen redistricting convention. What I discovered is that technically we are not sovereign as citizens over the Maryland General Assembly. That this bill would require every 10 years after the census, every county would elect a delegation to go draw the districts for both their national legislators and their state legislators. We need to completely take out of the hands out of us, the politicians, drawing our districts. You cannot edit your own writing. You cannot proofread your writing. You cannot grade your own papers. By legislators drawing their own districts, that's precisely what's taking place. By turning the redistricting back over to you, the people, you will have more autonomy and control over your government. And thank you very much.
Thank you. And batting cleanup, we have Senator Reedy.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I was a little bit late. I was so busy preparing what I was going to say that I apologize, but thank you so much. And it's been great to hear what all of my colleagues here have said. Sometimes they have us go first, so it was great to actually be able to bat cleanup, so it's great. I'm Senator Justin Reedy and very honored to serve representing District 5 in the legislature, and working with Senator West on the Senate side as our two Carroll County senators now. I sit on the Senate Finance Committee, which deals with a number of the same issues that the House Economic Matters Committee deals with relative to business regulation. But there's a little bit of a difference. Finance covers more health care than Economic Matters does. And finance used to have all energy issues, but now they've moved that to a different committee. So Economic Matters does energy. But I'd like to talk to you a little bit about energy for a moment. I think that's where I'll center that, energy and transportation, for just a moment. First of all, I'll start with transportation. First of all, you all, I think probably because you're pretty well read and are following things closely, I know many of you in the room, our transportation trust fund has a deficit. Our transportation trust fund is separate from the general fund. It's funded pretty much almost exclusively by our gas tax dollars and by our car registration fees. There are some other things that go into it as well, and there's a lot of federal money, but from the state side, funding transportation trust fund comes from that. You may have noticed our cars are getting more energy efficient, gas efficient, which I think is a good thing, but that means people are paying less and less gas tax. However, we pay the 5th highest rate in the country for gas tax, and it goes up every July 1st automatically at the rate of inflation. Conversely, the fares that people pay to use mass transit, which a large percentage of our gas tax dollars go to subsidize, those fares, they used to go up automatically, but the General Assembly a couple years ago passed a change to that. Actually, last session passed a change to that. Again, we all voted against it to take away that CPI escalator. So already fare box recovery, which is how much of the fare box helps to pay for the mass transit system, was already extremely low, and now the General Assembly, in its infinite wisdom, has made that even lower. And I bring that up to say, and of course now the state has also put in a mandate that we're going to have all electric cars or Jetson-style flying machines, I'm hoping for, by 1935, but not on gas. They can't fly on gas. It's got to be all electric by 1935, by 2035. Thank you. And so what the, and I'll get to that in a minute, but on the energy side. But what that means is I actually don't think that's going to happen, and I actually think it's foolish to set something 10 years in advance because there are new technologies coming online, and also it's not government's role to set that kind of control in the economy. But I digress. If we are going to get more and more all-electric cars, which is fine if you like to have an all-electric car, but those folks don't pay any gas tax. But the cars are as heavy on the road and as damaging on the road as our gas tax. So with all that said, there's been a lot of discussion and it's going to be a big item of conversation this session about what we do about the deficits in our Transportation Trust Fund. And before you say, well, that's Larry Hogan's fault for cutting all those tolls are separate. There's separate agreements with the tolling bridges. So it's separate. So anyway, I believe, and I don't know if I speak for all of us or not, but I think we need to do something about making sure that all electric cars have some way that they pay in to the system. And I think we need mass transit to stop being the dominant force in our Transportation Trust Fund. Under Governor Hogan, mass transit still was getting a big chunk of the Transportation Trust Fund, but he did rebalance that to where more money was going to roads. We understand that some subsidization of mass transit is going to have to happen. That's practical. We understand that, particularly in the D.C. area. I've never been one that says it has to completely pay for itself, because I don't think that would probably be particularly realistic in the environment we're in. But we can't have this much of a deficit. But what you're going to hear from our Democratic colleagues is people need to pay more into the Transportation Trust Fund. And that is not really the answer from a perspective of the gas taxpayers. We are paying a lot of money, and most of our gas tax money gets sent to places that don't actually impact the roads directly. So that's a concern that I have. It ties into energy in this way. This has been percolating for a while, but we solved the climate crisis, the so-called climate crisis, a couple years ago because we passed a bill called Climate Solutions Now Act, which meant we were going to solve the climate crisis that now, by actions that Maryland takes in a little strip of land on the east coast of the United States, that's going to fix what they believe is this existential climate crisis based entirely on modeling, just like all of our emissions rates and goals are all set based by modeling. They're not actually based by temperature regulations, but we don't have enough time to get into all of that. They're now rolling out, though, the Moore administration is rolling out a new plan. I'm going to call it the Green Raw Deal, because it's not the Green New Deal, it's the Green Raw Deal. It's basically setting a goal of dramatic emissions reductions by 2045 that Maryland would be completely net zero emissions in the state. That the cost to do that, because the way they get there is they're trying to actually, in the plan that's come out from the Maryland Department of the Environment and the Biden administration is part of this as well. They're the EPA. They want Maryland would basically restrict how far you can drive without having to pay additional fees. It would start to tax if you're hauling or transporting hazardous materials. There's a proposed tax or fee or toll to pay for that, and they consider fuel a hazardous material. And that's just two of about 5 or 6 different things that are in this plan that would be new taxes or fees. And so they need $1 billion to do that. What's funny is we actually in the last 25 years have reduced our emissions in the state by over 30%. Since 2006, in the last 20 years, since 2006, we've reduced our emissions by 20%, by 30%. We're continuing to make progress. Ratepayers are already subsidizing our energy, are dramatically subsidizing renewable energies in the state. Your bill every month is, whether you're a business or an individual, you're paying ratepayer subsidies, and we just passed, you're going to pay more. You've been paying ratepayer subsidies for production of wind energy, and we haven't gotten this for 10 years. And we haven't gotten a single kilowatt hour of wind energy. So when they say, oh, we're going to do some fees to do our part, we've already been doing our part. So this new proposal is coming out in the middle of an economic downturn in the middle of a budget deficits that are stretching out. And so I only had a few minutes, so that did not really cover all the details of it. I'd love to talk to you more offline if you're interested. But it's a big concern of ours, this sort of idea that we're going to just electrify everything, which, by the way, where does our electricity come from? That's another issue. It doesn't just come from the sky. It still comes from a lot of dirty sources. And so that's the kind of stuff we're dealing with in Annapolis. We are going to try to find common ground on a lot of issues like you've heard, but I am very concerned about this sort of radical push in a state where we already do a whole lot of this kind of stuff, and you already pay for a whole lot of this kind of stuff. For us to try to get some sort of pie in the sky 2045 net zero emissions thing is, I think, a huge mistake. So anyway, that's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. we might have just a couple of minutes for maybe a question or two, and I think there might be a circulating mic if we do have a question. So, Don.
Hi, Don Ralph from the R. Can you talk about the possibility of minimum wage going to $20?
I think I saw that, is it Montgomery County, Mark Elric already proposed 20, and one of my colleagues says, well, why don't we just go to 100? Because it's never going to be enough. And so I hear from the business community all the time. In fact, I had a local business owner ask me just the other day, is there a possibility of rolling that back in the restaurant industry with smaller number of employees? I do not see them ever rolling that back. I think that, once it starts, all bad policy to me comes from Montgomery County, and usually it starts in Tacoma Park. So I think that we said that when we passed 15. When is it ever going to be enough? And I would not be surprised to see somebody put that bill in. They may wait and see what a county does, but anything is possible down there, and I know that would be disastrous. So we will certainly fight against it.
So there's a time for everything under heaven. And just yesterday, we went to $15 an hour. It took effect yesterday. I think it's unlikely that in this session of the General Assembly, there will be a strong, sustained push to increase the minimum wage. But I wouldn't want to make a prediction about next year.
I think that's right.
Anybody else? No questions? We have a gentleman over here.
Do you think that the push to electric vehicles and electrification is purposefully done to introduce a tracking system on vehicles? Because otherwise, how are we ever going to pay for roads?
It's good that you should ask that question. I actually have a bill that I'm putting in as the lead sponsor, but it's our Senate Republican caucus, and the House Republicans will have it on the other side. Part of the bill, it's an omnibus bill about transportation that deals with some of the issues I talked about, including that one. There's a lot of Supreme Court precedent that says you can't use GPS to track people's mileage or to track people without their kind of in a coercive manner. But I wouldn't put past Maryland. We've seen what they've done on some other constitutional rights. It wouldn't put past Maryland trying something like that. I think their goal, I think there are people in the Moore administration and in the recesses of sort of the, I guess what you call the green movement in the state that would love to do that. Because I think the goal eventually, and everything you see in some of the, you have to read into the documents pretty deep that they put out. They don't lead with this, but the goal of a lot of these really extreme groups is, extreme groups like our Department of Environment, extreme groups is they believe we should be limiting where people drive. They really want, it used to be people would say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. No, they really say it. They want us, you really shouldn't be driving so much. You shouldn't be driving so far. Do you really need to just drive an hour just because you feel like it? You think about our mother, Earth. And and they want it. So I think it's a push from some. I think it's probably a bridge too far even for our General Assembly right now. But we are continuing to put in bills to say we need to be sure we put it in law that we will not use GPS to ever track people's mileage. There are other ways. If you want to raise taxes, there's other ways to do it. I probably don't support it, but there are other more reasonable and not creepy ways to find to find tax revenue.
Well, thank you all for your time and attention. And as always, if there is a bill that you are interested in and would like our legislative committee to look at, reach out to Mike or a member of the committee, and we will be happy to do that. And now I'll turn it back to Mike.
Dana, thank you. And our delegation is very open. If you want to grab a number from somebody here, I know we don't have a lot of time for actual Q&A, but if you want to get a number, you want to call them, you want to meet up with them, they'd love to probably engage with you with that. I also want to thank our actual sponsors, BGE, the hospital, and CMC. Thank you all. You guys appreciate your support. We have an event 1 week from today at the Carroll Arts Center. It's the State of the County address with all of our commissioners, and that's a free event. You have to look online. I forget. Does that start at like 8 o'clock or something? I think it starts at 8. I forget. It's these early events that we've got, but it's free to attend, and it's always good to hear from our local commissioners. As I mentioned before, we're celebrating 100 years as a chamber. So mark your calendars for September 6th. We're going to have a really nice event at the Antrim. So September 6th, it's a Friday night. And also, we should have given you, do you know, I'm kind of looking at the calendar, but hoping you guys will all come back for the legislative wrap-up to tell us how things went. And we normally do it in April. And
Don't do it the day we get back from session.
I'll try not to do it today.
Please don't.
Any day you'd like to do it at like 6 in the morning, we could try to work that out.
We staggered into the library.
That's true. I forget what day it is, but it's on our calendar, and we'd like you guys to come back. We will notify you all. The Carroll Biz Challenge, we'll be taking applications for that. This will be year number 13. It's a great event. If you know any local entrepreneurs looking to get known and maybe win 10 grand in cash, it's a great event. We'll have an email out about that, but application period starts, I think, within the month. Also, we're accepting applications for the Leadership Carroll class of 2025. That would start in September of this year with an overnight retreat. We have plenty of open spaces right now. The thing is, if you wait, or if you know anybody who waits until the last minute, it's normally filled up, so get an application in. We're going to Croatia in October. We like to take trips, have a lot of fun. We just got back from Egypt in November of last year. Great trip. We're doing Iceland, naturally, but Egypt. People are worried about Israel. Iceland, we've got we've got lava coming up. I like to pick places that are exciting, but it's supposed to be safe. But Croatia, hopefully nothing's going to happen, but I wouldn't bet on it since I've scheduled a trip there, so hopefully that's going to be good. A couple minutes, are there any big events coming up, any announcements from the floor, anything that I missed? We usually only do chamber events, but you've got a second if you've got anything happening. Oh, yes.
We do a district night in Annapolis, and it will be, and actually we make it a kind of a Carroll County night because there's just the 6 of us, so both District 5 and District 42C will be on President's Day. I don't know the date, but it's that's
18th.
The 18th, February 18th. So if you're interested in coming down to Annapolis on a Monday evening, Monday the 19th, thank you, Monday the 19th. You feel free to reach out to any of our offices about the information, but we meet at the Maryland Inn, and then you can stay and see the evening session if you want to on Monday nights. But we invite anybody. It's free of charge, but we do need RSVPs. So.
Thank you, thank you.
And if anybody wants to come down and sit in our office and talk to us about legislation at any time, please call, make an appointment, come on down.
Sounds good. Do we have to bring you a lunch or something, too?
No, you're not allowed to, actually. Don't do that.
Well, then nobody brings you a lunch.
A Tootsie Roll would help.
Yeah, piece of cake.
We work for food.
That sounds good. All right, I guess there are probably no other announcements. I want to thank you all for coming, everybody here, and have a wonderful day. Have an awesome 2024. Thank you so much. Thank you. Sure. Don't worry about it, man. It worked out.
I wish I could tell you I overslept, but it wasn't even that.
It's okay.